markers, even as God's mark. There are things that are triggers. And so, the reason we know where to find home is because as we drive, there are triggers along the way. And eventually, the final trigger says, this is my corner, turn left or turn right, and this is my house. There are triggers. Such is the case with forgiveness. There are triggers. There are things that trigger a memory. And that memory incites feelings. Forgiveness does not necessitate a forgetting of the event. You rightly describe it as not holding to account.
Right.
And so, I would say to the gentleman here that you have to determine what are those markers that are triggering the memory, the feelings, the emotions, because those are the things that will need to be addressed. Some of those things you might be able to address with the person, if any at all. Some of those things you might not, but you need to find those triggers and address that. Addressing those triggers might mean replacing them with something else. Some other memory, some action, some activity, but those triggers are what keeps you triggered each time you see the person. And forgiveness is a process. For some people, they get through it sooner than others. Some people go 10, 15, 20 years still struggling to forgive. It's because they have to find those triggers, those markers along the way that ignite them and keep them going and address that. So, that is what I would suggest, trying to determine those triggers. Now, in some cases, it's absolutely necessary to avoid the person altogether. That's just the reality of it. If you can't avoid the person, then you have to identify those triggers. Otherwise, you risk continuing to damage your own health, and you risk a boil over into something that you might say or do to the person, because it's alive and well in your system.
Amen.
With regard to people, the scenario that lady here mentioned about person talking and they address it, as with everything, things have to be weighed on a case-by-case basis. If you're talking in the context of church, there are certain biblical standards that govern dealing with that. For example, if you look at Matthew 18, verse 15. The disciples had the same, still a forgiveness issue, and a dealing with matters issue. In Matthew 18, 15, Jesus says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and as a publican. Church context. And so, Jesus says in this context, there is recourse. The first step is, as you said, you try to resolve it between the two of you. If it ends there, it's done. If it's not there on the end, then you take with you 1 or 2 more, not just anybody 1 or 2 more. You want people who are godly, who are sound, who are not there to help intensify the fire, so that they can witness that you truly try to address this matter in the right spirit, with the right heart, etc., etc. If that doesn't happen, church leadership. Take it to the leaders. Let them try to address the matter. That doesn't happen, make it a church matter so that the brethren at large try to resolve the matter the way it ought to be. And if not, then church leadership has a responsibility then, to dismiss that person from the fellowship because they're not seeking peace, they're not seeking God, they're not seeking the interest of Christ. So that is what I would say on those matters. Got a couple other questions, but I did long-winded just now.